Jax's revenge domain. I can still feel that folder hitting my desk. Not placed, not handed over, just slid across like Brian was dealing cards. No eye contact, no explanation, just that quiet push that told me exactly how much my 15 years meant to him. I'm Will Harper, 48 years old, and I walked into that meeting thinking I was getting recognition. Instead, I got a reality check that changed everything. The document was simple enough. Effective immediately, Will Harper transitions to Digital Transformation Mentor under Innovation Lead Jason Pierce. That's corporate speak for you're now reporting to a 28-year-old who thinks Excel is cutting-edge technology. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. I'd been Senior Operations Director at Westfield Industries for 15 years. Started when Emma was just 3 years old and my wife Sarah was pregnant with Mike. Back then, the company was a mess. 3 people trying to handle what should have been a 20-person operation. Vendors calling directly to complain, clients threatening to leave every other week, and inventory management that consisted of post-it notes stuck to a whiteboard. I built that department from nothing, hired the right people, implemented actual systems, established vendor relationships that lasted over a decade. We went from 3 people to 22, from chaos to something that actually functioned. Every process, every protocol, every crisis management procedure, I'd constructed it piece by piece, working nights and weekends while my kids were little. Brian Westfield, the owner's son who became CEO 3 years ago, had been taking credit for my work ever since. The guy inherited a profitable company and somehow convinced himself he'd built it. Every board meeting, every client presentation, he'd stand up there talking about our operational excellence like he'd invented efficiency. That Wednesday morning started like any other. Coffee at 6:30, quick scan of overnight emails, office by 7:15. Same routine I'd followed for years. Emma was starting her sophomore year at State, pre-med, straight A's, making her old man proud. Mike was a senior in high school, already getting recruitment letters from colleges with engineering programs. Good kids, both of them. The mortgage had 8 years left at $3,200 a month. Everything was stable, predictable. That should have been my first warning. Around 10:30, Brian's assistant knocked on my door. Michelle never knocked unless something was serious. Her voice was tight when she said Brian wanted to see me immediately, like she already knew something I didn't. I grabbed my notebook and walked down that familiar hallway, thinking maybe it was about the quarterly review or the new client contracts we'd landed. The executive wing always felt different from the rest of the building. Thicker carpet, better lighting, that kind of quiet that comes from actual soundproofing instead of thin walls. I'd walked that hallway hundreds of times for project reviews, budget discussions, strategic planning sessions, never once thinking it might be for something like this. Brian's office was all glass and chrome, the kind of setup that's supposed to make you feel important but mostly just makes everything echo. He was behind his massive desk, scrolling through his phone with that concentrated frown he wore when he wanted to look busy. Didn't even glance up when I knocked on the open door. "Will, come in. Close the door behind you." That's when I knew. You don't close doors for good news. He pointed at the chair across from his desk without looking up from his phone, still typing, still performing his busy executive routine. Before I could even sit down, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder. No ceremony, no build-up, just slid it across that polished surface like he was dealing cards at a poker table. "Strategic restructuring," he said, finally making eye contact. "The board's been discussing our digital transformation initiative. We need fresh leadership for the future of operations." I opened the folder, expecting contract modifications or new responsibilities, maybe even details about the VP position I'd been hinting about for months. Instead, I saw my title crossed out in red ink and replaced with Digital Transformation Mentor. My salary stayed the same, but every line of authority had been stripped away. Everything I'd built over 15 years was being handed to Jason Pierce. Jason Pierce. The kid who'd interned here 2 summers ago and somehow landed a full-time spot because his dad played golf with Brian's dad. The same Jason Pierce who'd once suggested we replace our entire vendor management system with a Facebook group, who submitted a proposal to gamify our supply chain by turning it into something that looked like Candy Crush. "You want me to train my replacement?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Brian leaned back in his chair with that smirk he'd perfected in business school. "I want you to mentor the future, Will. Jason understands where business is heading. Social media integration, app development, cloud-based solutions. The board thinks we need someone who speaks that language." The board. Brian's way of saying he'd already made the decision and didn't want to own it directly. Jason's waiting in conference room B, he continued. Figured you two could start the transition process immediately. I looked down at the folder again, reading the same impossible words. After 15 years of building, creating, solving every crisis they threw at me, I was being demoted to train someone who thought LinkedIn was a revolutionary business tool. Something deep inside me shifted in that moment, but I kept my expression neutral. When does this take effect? Today. I know it's a big change, but I'm confident you'll help Jason succeed. I closed the folder and set it back on his desk. That was the moment I realized Brian hadn't demoted me because I failed. He did it because he assumed I'd accept it, quietly, gratefully, without resistance. I'll head over to conference room B, I said, standing up. As I walked toward the door, Brian called out, Will, this is good for your career long term. Digital transformation is the future. I nodded and kept walking. But something inside me had already started planning for a different kind of future entirely. Walking to conference room B felt like a death march. The hallway seemed longer than usual, and I could feel eyes on me from every cubicle I passed. Word travels fast in corporate environments, especially bad news. People were pretending to work while watching me walk toward what everyone probably assumed was just another meeting. But it wasn't just another meeting. It was me walking toward the kid who was about to inherit everything I'd spent 15 years building. Conference room B was the smaller one, with flickering fluorescent lights and a table that wobbled if you leaned on it wrong. Not exactly where you'd expect to hand over the keys to a multi-million-dollar operation, but I guess that was the point. This wasn't a celebration or promotion ceremony. This was a quiet transfer of power from the old guard to the new. Jason was already there when I walked in, spinning slowly in one of those cheap office chairs, wearing sneakers and a polo shirt that looked like he'd slept in it. When he saw me, he stopped spinning and gave me this half-wave, half-high-five gesture that he seemed to regret immediately. Hey, Will, this is so cool. Brian told me about the mentorship thing. Cool. My 15-year career reduced to cool. I set my laptop on the table and sat down across from him. What exactly did Brian tell you about this arrangement? His face lit up like Christmas morning. That you're going to train me to take over operations. He said you'd show me everything about how things work around here, all the systems and processes and stuff. I'm really excited to learn from someone with so much experience. Everything. All the systems and processes and stuff. 15 years of vendor relationships, crisis management protocols, budget oversight, client expectations. The machine I'd built out of absolute chaos, piece by piece, working nights and weekends while my kids were little. Where do you want to start? I asked. I don't know, everything, I guess. Maybe the fun stuff first? The fun stuff. There's no fun stuff in operations. There's stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. Stuff that keeps the company running and stuff that shuts it down. But I opened my laptop and pulled up our main dashboard. For the next 3 hours, I walked him through the basics. Our scheduling system that coordinated 47 different vendors across 8 states. The inventory management protocols that prevented the $2 million overstock disaster we'd had 5 years ago. The client escalation matrix that kept angry customers from becoming former customers. Jason took notes for about 15 minutes. Then he started checking his phone. Then he started asking questions that made my stomach hurt. Why can't we just automate all this with AI? Could we gamify the vendor relationship somehow? What if we moved everything to the cloud and made it more like Instagram? Instagram. He wanted to make supply chain management more like Instagram. 20 minutes in, I realized he wasn't writing down procedures or protocols. He was sketching what looked like app interfaces in the margins of his notebook. Little boxes with smiley faces and thumbs-up icons. This is a lot to remember, he said after I'd explained our quality control checkpoints for the 3rd time. Maybe we could just create an app that reminds people what to do? An app that reminds people what to do. For processes that required understanding vendor capabilities, client specifications, shipping logistics, and inventory turnover rates. An app with reminder notifications. Jason, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, these aren't tasks you can automate or simplify. Each decision affects dozens of other decisions. When Midwest Manufacturing calls with a rush order, you need to know which vendors can handle expedited shipping, which ones have capacity constraints, and how it affects our other commitments. You can't just push a button and hope an app figures it out. He nodded enthusiastically. Right. But what if the app learned from previous decisions? Like machine learning or whatever? Machine learning or whatever. This kid was going to be responsible for operations that generated $30 million in annual revenue, and he thought machine learning was, or whatever. At one point, he looked up from his sketches and asked the question that cut deeper than anything Brian had said. Will, why didn't Brian just put you in charge of digital transformation? You obviously know all this stuff better than I do. A simple, innocent question. And the answer was complicated in ways a 28-year-old wouldn't understand. Because he could, I said. The truth was more nuanced than that, but Jason wouldn't get it. Men like Brian didn't value quiet competence. They valued people who reflected their vision of the future back at them. Jason wasn't qualified, but he was young, eager, and spoke the buzzword language that Brian thought meant innovation. He was malleable in a way I'd never been. I'd spent 15 years telling Brian when his ideas wouldn't work, when his cost-cutting suggestions would create bigger problems, when his ambitious timelines were unrealistic. I'd saved the company millions by saying no to bad ideas, but saying no doesn't get you promoted. It gets you replaced by someone who says yes to everything. We finished the training session around 3:30. Jason stood up, stretched, and said, "Thanks, Will. I know this is probably weird for you, but I think it's going to work out great. You're like really smart about this stuff. Really smart about this stuff. 15 years of expertise reduced to really smart about this stuff. When do you want to continue?" I asked. "Tomorrow? Same time? Oh, and maybe you could put together like a summary document or something? With all the important points? That would be super helpful. A summary document." He wanted me to compress 15 years of operational knowledge into a summary document so he wouldn't have to remember what we'd discussed. After he left, I sat alone in that conference room with the flickering lights and the wobbly table. My laptop was still open to the vendor management system I designed 8 years ago. Hundreds of relationships, thousands of successful transactions, millions of dollars in cost savings, all of it about to be handed over to someone who thought it could be improved with smiley face icons. That evening, driving home with both hands gripping the steering wheel, I kept thinking about Jason's question. Why didn't Brian just put me in charge of digital transformation? Because digital transformation wasn't really about improving operations. It was about Brian proving he was forward-thinking, progressive, in touch with the future. And you can't prove you're revolutionary by promoting the guy who's been quietly making things work for 15 years. My phone buzzed at a red light. Text message from a number I didn't recognize at first. Then I remembered. Howard Sullivan from Alliance Logistics. We'd met at the regional conference 6 months ago, talked shop over drinks. Sharp guy, early 60s, built his company from nothing. "Will, heard through the grapevine about your situation at Westfield. Coffee this week? I've got a proposition that might interest you." I stared at that message until the car behind me honked. Howard Sullivan wanted to meet. A guy who'd built something real, who understood what operations actually meant. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt something other than resignation. I met Howard at Morrison's Cafe on Thursday morning. It's one of those places that's been around forever, with real coffee instead of fancy drinks and booths where you can actually have a conversation without the whole place hearing you. Howard was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 regular coffees and no laptop in sight. That told me something right there. Serious business guys who actually get things done don't need to perform their importance with devices and complicated orders. "Will, good to see you again," he said, standing to shake my hand. Firm grip, direct eye contact, none of that corporate theater you get from guys like Brian. We sat down and Howard got straight to the point. "I've been watching your work at Westfield for years. Your department's efficiency ratings, client retention numbers, vendor satisfaction scores, best in the region consistently. I'd never heard anyone quantify my work like that." Brian took credit for the numbers without understanding how they were achieved. To him, good metrics just appeared because he was CEO. Howard pulled out a single sheet of paper from his jacket pocket. Not a formal presentation, not a PowerPoint deck, just 1 page with handwritten notes. "I'm expanding Alliance Logistics," he said. "Need a partner, not an employee. Someone who understands operations from the ground up. Someone who can build teams and systems that actually work. 50-50 ownership split. You'd handle all operational oversight. I'd focus on strategic development and new business. Partner. Not manager, not director, not senior anything. Partner. What's the timeline?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Whenever you're ready." I know you've got kids in college, mortgage payments, real responsibilities. I'm not asking you to jump without looking, but I am asking you to think about what you're worth, what I was worth. Nobody had asked me that question in years. I need some time to think about it, I said. Howard nodded. Take all the time you need. But Will, understand this. What Brian's doing to you isn't about performance or digital transformation or any of that nonsense. It's about a weak man feeling threatened by someone who actually knows how to run things. He was right, of course. I'd known it for months but hadn't wanted to admit it. Brian wasn't interested in improving operations. He was interested in surrounding himself with people who made him feel smart. There's something else you should know, Howard continued. Patricia Williams at Midwest Manufacturing called me last week. She's frustrated with the service she's getting from Westfield since you've been sidelined. 3 other clients have reached out through industry channels asking about alternatives. They don't know you're my first choice for partner, but they remember who actually solved their problems. That hit harder than I expected. These were relationships I'd built over years, clients who trusted me personally, and they were already looking for alternatives because they could see the quality declining. I drove home that afternoon thinking about everything Howard had said. Emma's tuition was due in 6 weeks, $18,000 for the semester. Mike would be applying to colleges soon, and even with academic scholarships, we were looking at serious money. The mortgage payment was $3,200 every month, and we had 8 years left. I couldn't just walk away from steady income no matter how appealing Howard's offer sounded. But I also couldn't keep watching Jason destroy everything I'd built. The next 2 weeks at Westfield were painful. Without me managing the day-to-day crisis control, problems started piling up fast. A vendor contract Jason misread cost the company $50,000 in penalty fees because he didn't understand the delivery timeline requirements. A client escalation he handled with corporate buzzwords resulted in Midwest Manufacturing threatening to cancel their 5-year contract. A supply coordination error left 3 major clients without inventory for 4 days straight. None of it was officially my fault, but Brian kept calling me into his office asking me to fix things quietly. I was still responsible for cleaning up the disasters, but Jason got credit for any solutions that worked. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Brian scheduled an emergency board meeting for Monday and demanded I prepare a comprehensive operational report in 2 hours. A full analysis of vendor performance, client satisfaction, inventory turnover, and cost efficiency metrics, the kind of report that usually took me 2 days to compile properly. Just pull together the highlights, he said, standing in my doorway like he was doing me a favor. Make it look good for the board. Make it look good. 15 years of systems and processes reduced to making Brian look good for people who probably couldn't tell the difference between gross margin and net profit. I looked at him standing there, checking his watch impatiently, and something inside me finally snapped. This report will take 2 days to do properly, I said. Will, I need it in 2 hours. The board expects details. Then maybe Jason should prepare it. He's the innovation lead now. Brian's face tightened. Jason doesn't have your experience with the historical data. No, he doesn't. But if he's taking over operations, he needs to learn how to handle board presentations. Well, I'm not asking. I'm telling you to have this ready by 4 p.m. I stood up slowly. Brian, I've spent 15 years making you look competent to people who matter. I've cleaned up every mess, solved every crisis, and covered for every bad decision you've made. But I'm done being your safety net while you pretend someone else can do my job. He stared at me, probably shocked that I'd finally said what we both knew was true. You want this report? Have Jason prepare it. He's the future of operations, right? Let him prove it. That night, I called Howard. I'm ready, I said. Good. When can you start? I need to give 2 weeks' notice. Howard laughed. Will, you don't owe them anything after what they've done. But if that's how you want to handle it, I respect that. I wrote my resignation letter at the kitchen table while Emma studied for her organic chemistry exam. Short, professional, clean. No accusations, no emotional outbursts, just notice that I was leaving to pursue other opportunities. When I finished, I read it twice. Not to edit it, but because part of me couldn't believe I'd actually written it, then I printed it, signed it, and set it on my nightstand. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Monday morning, I walked into Westfield Industries for what I knew would be one of the last times. Same routine, coffee at 6:30, office by 7:15, but everything felt different. The resignation letter was folded in my jacket pocket, and for the first time in months, I wasn't dreading the day ahead. Brian's office door was already open when I got there. He was on a call, pacing behind his desk and gesturing like he was delivering a TED Talk instead of explaining to some vendor why their invoice was 3 weeks overdue. When he saw me, he held up one finger and mouthed 1 second like I was interrupting something important. That tiny gesture, the finger, the dismissiveness, the assumption that his time was more valuable than mine, crystallized everything wrong with our relationship. I wasn't waiting anymore. When he finally hung up, he pointed at the chair across from his desk. "Will, about that board report. I need it ready by noon." I didn't sit down. Instead, I stepped forward and placed the folded resignation letter in the center of his desk. It took him a moment to process what he was looking at. The confident smirk faded, his eyebrows twitched, and I watched his expression rearrange itself into something between confusion and panic. "What is this?" he asked, unfolding the paper. "My resignation. Effective 2 weeks from today." He read it twice, like the words might change if he looked hard enough. "You're quitting?" "Yes." "Because of the restructuring?" "Will, you're being dramatic. This makes you look weak, like you're running away because you didn't get your way." I met his eyes without flinching. "I'm not running, Brian. I'm leaving. There's a difference." He leaned back in his chair, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You know you'll never find another position like this at your age. Not with comparable benefits, not with the kind of stability we offer here. At my age." There it was, finally out in the open. "You're right," I said. "I probably won't find another position like this one." His smirk started to return, like he'd won the argument. "I'm going to find something better." The smirk disappeared. "I'll finish my 2 weeks professionally," I continued. "After that, I'm done." I didn't wait for permission or a response. I walked past the cubicles, past the whispers, past the people suddenly very interested in their computer screens. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from release, like my body finally realized the cage door was open. By lunchtime, half the office knew. Some people avoided me like resignation might be contagious. Others, like Diana Foster from accounting, pulled me aside. "Are you really leaving?" she whispered. "Really leaving." "Good for you," she said, glancing around to make sure nobody was listening. "This place has been different since Jason started. Not better different." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Westfield Industries begin to unravel. Without me managing the daily crisis control, small problems became big problems, and big problems became disasters. Jason tried to implement some kind of digital workflow system that crashed on the first day. A major client called, threatening to cancel their contract because nobody could give them a straight answer about their shipment. The vendor penalty fees hit $75,000 by the end of my second week. My last day came with no fanfare, no cake, no card, no awkward goodbye gathering, just quiet handshakes from the few people who understood what was really happening. Scott Phillips from logistics shook my hand and said, "Place won't be the same without you." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," I replied. Monday morning, I walked into Alliance Logistics, real office space, professional atmosphere, people who looked up when I entered instead of pretending I was invisible. Howard introduced me to the team as his partner, not his new hire. "Will's going to handle all operational oversight," he told them. "He's got more experience running efficient operations than most consultants have in their entire careers." The first client call came Tuesday morning. Patricia Williams from Midwest Manufacturing, an account I'd managed for 8 years at Westfield. "Will, thank goodness," she said when she heard my voice. "I've been trying to get straight answers from your old team for 3 weeks. Nothing but delays and confusion." I walked her through a solution step by step, just like I had dozens of times before. By the end of the call, she'd signed a 2-year contract with Alliance Logistics. "Finally, someone who actually knows what they're doing," she said before hanging up. That's how it started. Word traveled fast in our industry. Other clients I'd worked with for years started calling, asking about the move. Vendors reached out wanting to know about new partnership opportunities, not because I was actively recruiting, but because they knew I'd give them straight answers and reliable service. Within 3 months, Alliance Logistics had doubled in size. We hired 8 new people, opened a second warehouse location, and landed contracts with 2 Fortune 500 companies. My name went on the letterhead next to Howard's, equal partners, just like he'd promised. The collapse of Westfield Industries happened faster than anyone expected. Scott Phillips called me one afternoon, his voice strained. "Will, it's a complete disaster over here. Jason quit last week after the digital workflow thing fell apart. Diana gave notice this morning. 3 more clients canceled their contracts. Brian's been locked in his office for 2 days straight, and nobody knows what to do. I didn't feel triumphant hearing that. I felt confirmed. The weight I'd been carrying for 15 years was real. The problems I'd been solving were genuine. I hadn't been overstating my value or being dramatic about the company's dysfunction. 8 months after I left, Westfield Industries filed for bankruptcy. Brian tried calling me once, something about consulting opportunities and helping them restructure, but I didn't return the call. That chapter was closed. Meanwhile, Alliance Logistics kept growing. We opened a 3rd location, hired 25 people total, and this quarter we're on track to hit $40 million in annual revenue. Howard and I are already planning the next expansion phase. At the Regional Logistics Conference last month, I saw Brian across the room. He looked smaller, older, like he'd aged 5 years and 18 months. Our eyes met for a moment and he started walking toward me, then stopped halfway and turned around. Maybe he realized he had nothing to say that would matter. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't the demotion or the humiliation. It was staying somewhere that refused to see my value. I spent 15 years telling myself loyalty mattered more than respect, that patience would eventually be rewarded. But here's what I learned. You can't save a place that's determined to ignore the foundation holding it up. Experience isn't obsolete no matter what younger managers think. And sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding somewhere else. Howard tells people I saved Alliance Logistics, but that's not true. Alliance gave me a place to do what I'd always done, just with recognition instead of exploitation. The best part? Emma graduated debt-free last spring with honors. Mike's starting at State in the fall with a partial engineering scholarship. The mortgage has 3 years left. And every morning, I wake up knowing my work actually matters to people who understand its value. Sometimes walking away with dignity teaches more than any confrontation ever could. Your reputation follows you long after your title is forgotten. Invest in relationships and competence, not corporate politics.